Hi there, I'm Captain Space Toaster, and based on the fact that you're here listening to my voice, you're probably wondering one of two things. One, what even is this? Or two, how is this even possible? And don't worry, we're absolutely going to get there, but I do have some explaining to do. For those of you new to Astroneer, it's a sandbox game where you collect resources using a terrain tool that lets you shape the ground. Those resources let you make progress. I was just sitting there when I thought to myself, what if I tried to beat Astroneer without ever using the terrain tool? What if I tried to beat Astroneer without ever using the terrain tool? Without the terrain tool, you can't collect resources. If you can't collect resources, you can't even build anything. And if you can't build anything, you really can't get very far in the game. I had a couple of tricks up my sleeve, so I gave it a try while streaming on Twitch and ended up with about 24 hours of recorded footage. I thought it'd make for a good video, but I've never actually produced a video like this before, and editing down 24 hours of footage is quite a chore. So I ended up sitting around and figuring out how to even edit this mess. So everything you see here is about 3 to 4 months old. The rules for the run are pretty simple. Start from a brand new save and get as far as you can by trying to unlock every planet. Absolutely no digging with the terrain tool or a drill of any kind. Certain glitches that would trivialize the run, such as clipping through the floor and walls, are a no-no. So with our guidelines in place, we're left to answer the question that started this all. Can you beat Astroneer without ever relying on the terrain tool? So where do I even begin? As my character lands on the ground and my starting base sets itself up, how am I going to do anything? The answer is to always be on the lookout for large wrecked shuttles, solar panels, and escape pods. Just looking around, you'll probably find a couple as they're littered about the entire planet like sprinkles over the world's most impractical spherical cupcake. These pieces of wreckage are remnants of other Astroneers sent by the Exo Corporation, who apparently haven't done so well. They are absolutely packed with useful items and resources, so we're just going to permanently borrow their things. I mean, as long as they don't need them anymore. The problem with this 100% discount strategy is that I'm limited with how far away I can run away from my starting base. Astroneers have a limited supply of oxygen shown on the backpack. I might be able to run and pick up items close by, but I would have no hope of exploring further away and coming back to tell the tale. I hope you have your fondue pots ready though, because this challenge run is made entirely out of cheese. Just to help out new players, every starting base comes with one starting platform and a medium printer. These two combine to form a little starting machine to build further platforms and other base items, so you could theoretically expand if you had resources. But that's not all. I'm also given an oxygenator. This fantastically futuristic fantasy fount of fabled fair fumes is a fabulous factory for fearless floaters. After hooking up this to my base, just standing next to any part will connect a blue cord and refill my backpack's oxygen. While it's definitely against Exodynamic Corporation guidelines, there is nothing that prevents enterprising explorers from taking the starting platform, slapping the oxygenator on it, and leaving the printer in its package. What's left is a portable platform that gives us the air we need without forcing us to stay connected to our home.
Was this the one on the hill? I think this was it. This might be a second one. I don't know. Oh sweet, we got a compound. These are all great resources.
So with a seemingly infinite amount of oxygen, and a slow but reliable way to collect resources, you'd think the run would be over, right? Just run around and pick up resources and surely we'll be able to do something. But no. To put it simply, the run has only begun. What follows is a grueling expedition to find and collect all of the materials necessary in order to leave this forsaken rock. The big problem is that the wreckage on the starting planet Silva doesn't have any of the resources I would need to make progress in the game's tech tree. The only things I can find are starting resources. To make unlocking later planets possible, we'll need the chem lab and the atmospheric condenser, which means we'll need to find a way to get off the planet to get access to the things we need. To get off the planet, we'll need a platform, an additional small and large printer, a small shuttle, and a shuttle thruster to turn the shuttle into a more exciting method of transportation that can go up. Totaling everything up, we'll need 2 resin, 4 compound, 1 ammonium, and 3 aluminum. There's another problem though. Aluminum is a pretty rare resource to find on Silva. We'll probably have to find the more common resource laterite and build a smelter to turn it into aluminum, which adds 2 more resin and another compound to the totals. With our intergalactic shopping list out of the way, what's next is an explorer's dream and a nightmare for those who can't keep their directions straight, of which I am definitely in the latter category. Whenever I could find wreckage, I'd loot everything I could and try to explore the areas using the mountains for reference and by trying to keep a forest or a biome on one side of me. I slowly made progress and collected a lot of the resources that I needed. I ended up with a lot of extras like quartz and ceramic, which I continued to hoard because I didn't want to leave anything behind. Don't worry, we're still not done with the cheese. When looting a piece of wreckage, sometimes there are items that spawn under the ground. Without access to the terrain tool, you can't use a mouse and a keyboard to pick them up because they aren't within the player's visible area to click on. Console players, however, are not held to the same restrictions. Plugging in an Xbox controller and using the right trigger to pick up nearby items will magically pull them out of the ground as long as there isn't anything else nearby.
A unsmelted copper, a unsmelted sphalerite, and I think that's it.
With a little bit of hard work and some help from our Xbox magnet, it was about time I explored the underside of the planet for our laterite. Even though I didn't have access to the terrain tool to punch a hole in the ground, the developers were kind enough to make holes for yours truly. After exploring for a bit and taking a quick dive into a tunnel, I was able to explore the vast cave system that's hidden right below the surface. The caves were a lot of fun to explore. I kept on running into little crevices and holes that would require some work to jump out of. Without the terrain tool, just walking around here could get you stuck if you weren't careful. I ended up using the oxygen platform to help me jump around in places to avoid getting stuck. Weirdly enough, there was also a lot of wreckage down here as well. These broken platforms have damaged buildings attached to them and evidence of explorers who tried to make their way in the world without considering the potential side effects that come from leaving the oxygenator at home. After a little bit of reclamation across the numerous bases, because EXO needs to work on this. At this point, it's just irresponsible. I eventually struck gold, a beat-up old platform that barely worked. 3 of the power ports had been destroyed, and the machine on top had seen better days, but the platform wasn't bent, and I could actually put a working machine on top. I could save myself some resin, which was good. I didn't have much anyways, but I couldn't just pick up the platform. That'd be too easy. It was wedged in the ground, and the developers probably intended for players to use the terrain tool to dig up and free the platform. But not here. We put that away for good, so instead of freeing the platform, I pulled out a packager that I had found earlier. The packager could pack up the broken platform into a box, which when unpacked will give me full control of the platform.
We can now expand. We can carry it around and move it around. We can put our oxygenator on it, and it gives us oxygen. And we can even put our medium storage right here. And we can store our wonderful goodies on it, like all of this sphalerite, I guess. What a find.
I was starting to feel pretty good about the run. I had a bunch of resources banked up, and I just found a new platform. I can almost imagine the shuttle, and wait a minute, I literally don't know how to get out of here. Looking around, I had just been wandering the tunnels aimlessly and trying to find whatever I could. Getting out wasn't really on the mind until now, but like I've always been told before, if you've dug yourself a hole, all you gotta do is stop digging. But I'm pretty sure that lesson doesn't have any relevance here, with the whole no dig thing being a part of the rules, and I started exploring for a ramp or a hole that might lead me upwards. With my eyes glued to the ceiling, and a bit of luck, I eventually found a tunnel that led to the layer above. I couldn't use the terrain tool to help build a ramp, so I'd need to rely on cheese once again. The game considers platforms and placeable items as solid objects. By placing the platform on a wall, I could walk on the platform until I reached the highest bit. Then I could place down another item that has a platform, like this light, and use that as a temporary step while I moved the platform again. It wasn't easy, and the game's camera sometimes denied me permission to have control of what I was looking at, but I could use this method to crawl up the walls. As long as I wasn't up too high, I wasn't really at risk of dying from fall damage, and as long as the oxygenator was nearby, I wouldn't suffer the same fate as the wrecked bases. I could keep trying until I finally made it into the next cavern layer, cause apparently I'm really deep in the ground. After walking around the caves and being lost for who knows how long, I eventually got lucky and found a hole that led me to the surface. It took a lot of work to get out of here, and then I was finally back to, well, still being lost, but at least on the surface this time.
Yeah, I think this one dead ends right away. No, it doesn't. Okay, we're out. Wow. That one just kept on going. That was fantastic. So we are finally out in the world, and we have no idea where we are. So let's do our best to figure out where we are based on this equator. So this band of stars, if you are directly under it, represents the equator. So we are basically on the equator. So we know our base is pretty close to the equator. So now we just need to figure out if we want to run east or west.
With a little help from some navigational know-how, I walked around the equator and eventually found a beacon that I left for myself to get back home.
Home sweet home. And we found the large platform, so that means we need to research the smelter and print the smelter, which is fine. We have the resources to be able to do that here. So 2 resin and a compound makes the smelting furnace. Okay. Once this is kind of up and running, I guess we're going to hook up our smelter over here. And we're just gonna kind of take it away. I guess we could start printing our small shuttle right away.
With our shopping list complete and the solar system at our fingertips, it suddenly became clear that we had some more choices to make. The next resources we needed were tungsten and iron. We decided to set out for the icy cold planet of Spekkio to try and find some iron. The story was roughly the same: explore, find wreckage, loot the wreckage, but instead of a platform with an oxygenator, we just carry the shuttle around with us instead. Whoever made the decision to allow the shuttle to provide oxygen without an oxygenator inside of it, I would like to extend a heartfelt and personal thank you for all of the cheese. After finding a number of other resources, the stop on Spekkio surprised me with a deep and personal, heartfelt, philosophical question. Up until this point, I had successfully avoided using the terrain tool, which meant I had never marred the perfect surface of any of the planets I had explored. I found the backpack of an explorer who forgot how to breathe while holding an entire stick of dynamite, which up until this point was completely inaccessible. When placed on the ground and detonated, a bit of the terrain would be destroyed. In one of Astroneer's updates, any of the resources that came with it would turn into collectible nuggets. After a quick consultation with Twitch chat, who determined that this run was simply a no terrain tool run and that explosions are always welcome, I left my first, but most certainly not my last, mark in the solar system. With a single stick of dynamite, I was met with a glorious explosion of resources that finally made me feel rich for once. I tried to visit the red Mars-like planet of Kalidor to find some tungsten, but couldn't seem to find any. Instead, I flew back home and printed another shuttle thruster with the resources I had been collecting. Then I set out for the exotic planet of Visania to see if my luck would fare any better. I filled up my inventory pretty quickly, but I didn't find any tungsten or wolframite that we could smelt into tungsten, so I returned home to drop everything off again. While I could have gone back to those other planets to keep looking, I decided to try Silva's moon De Solo to keep things fresh. We found the Lem, the weird unpowered landing platform, and finally, the wolframite we were looking for.
And I am finally holding a wolframite.
With these hard-earned and precious resources in hand, I returned home to build the start of an empire after a brisk 9 hours of getting hopelessly lost. After finally getting access to tungsten and iron, I could build a shredder and a trade platform. I could shred a lot of the items I wasn't using into scrap and trade the scrap into almost any resource or ingredient that I needed. This meant that resources weren't as difficult to come by anymore, and that I could start to focus on actually completing the game for once. To complete the game, we'll need to unlock every single planet first. To unlock a planet, we'll need to do 3 things. 1. Power one of the purple gateways on the surface. 2. Find our way down to the center of the planet. And 3. Deliver an indicated resource to reveal a collectible triptych as a souvenir. Powering a gateway isn't that big of a deal. I had been collecting rechargeable batteries from all of the surface wreckage. Once enough batteries were fully charged, I could just plug a number of them into a gateway in one go to unlock a gateway easy peasy. Getting to the center of a planet, however, is a much different story. Without access to the terrain tool, finding a way down through the maze of caverns and delivering the resources would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible. After previously earning my degree and getting lost, just going down 2 or 3 cavern layers wouldn't be too difficult, as the game generates tunnels that connect them all together. Going down all the way, though, is impossible because the game just doesn't generate any more tunnels that take us further down. We could attempt to rely on glitches and ignore the papery thin walls the game attempts to put in front of us, but I already said in the rules that we have to avoid glitches that break the spirit of the run. Instead, we're going down in style. That's right, we're going to be using dynamite and explosives to blast our way through the planets to make it to the core. With the plan in place, I immediately converted what machines I had into a dynamite factory. I set up sulfur collection on Kalidor and began converting everything that I could turn into scrap to make dynamite. A lot of dynamite. To save on some scrap, I can augment the initial explosion that dynamite creates by creating a chain reaction with other explosives, like these small canisters of explosive hydrogen gas.
Definitely made a bigger boom.
All I had to do was load up a large shuttle with an irresponsible number of explosives, the resource I need for the center of the planet, and a number of batteries, and I'd be good as gold. I would land, power a gateway, and then start blasting a hole or wandering around the caverns looking for free shortcuts. I didn't have too much trouble blasting my way into lower and lower layers of the planets, and I even started to double dip with a dynamite, using it to make a hole and collect resources for the return trip to keep the dynamite factory running smooth. First to solo.
I think we're fine. We're probably fine. Yeah, we're totally fine. And we're in! Nailed it! Oh, that's so exciting.
Then Calidor.
Alrighty. Yep, and lo and behold, there is graphite up here now all of a sudden. Can't say I'm surprised.
Then Vasanya.
Good to go. So, alrighty. Let's go complete Vasanya. Whee! There's a little bit of lithium down here at least. We'll do what we can to like put it in the shuttle. So now it is time to get the triptych and get out of here. DeSolo will be pretty easy too. DeSolo is Novus, sorry. Novus is a moon, so we won't have too much trouble getting there.
If you've been wondering how I've been getting out of the planet centers, the answer is always cheese. You can cause the shuttle to think there's an open sky above it as long as there's enough open space, like in the planet's core. By placing the shuttle in this spot that pokes through the purple shell, we can launch out of the planet's core. While this is a glitch, it really just saves me from printing a duplicate shuttle that I leave on the surface or stops me from wasting time by crawling back up the cave system I just came down. We decided to allow this glitch because it's cool and saves us from some monotony. For Novus, I had some fun and blasted a hole as straight as I could. I didn't weave around the different cavern layers or look for shortcuts. I ended up with a borehole straight to the planet's core.
Node sticking out, but we can just jump straight through. Oh, that's so fun. And then gravity should change and we should be good, so yeah. I think it takes longer to teleport back up than it does to jump down to the center.
I had some concerns for the last two planets. Both Aatrox and Glacia are the game's most difficult planets, which means the plants that grow on them are normally quite explosive, leaving me and the questionable shuttle cargo at risk at all times. Additionally, I didn't even know if the dynamite would even work, as the terrain on these planets is more difficult to mine. Normally, you would need a level 2 or 3 drill of some kind to punch a hole through the stubborn terrain, and I didn't know if dynamite would be able to get there. But we had come so far, so the only thing left to do was to simply give it a go. Glacio started out just fine, but as we burrowed deeper and deeper, the terrain did become more difficult to blast through. With enough dynamite, anything is possible, and it seemed like it was somehow working. It even ended up making this cool kind of cross-like pattern, which helped create a channel that would focus the next explosion. The section of hard terrain on Glacia was short and sweet, and we made it through without much trouble. As we started Aatrox, the hard terrain showed up once again, this time much closer to the surface. But I had spent my time training on Silva to become an unstoppable force of explosions and dynamite. But with all of my training, I didn't just blow up the planet, I blew my mind. If you look really closely at the weird cross pattern that shows up when you use dynamite, you'll notice it's actually a repeating pattern. And if you look really closely, you'll notice that it's a repeating pattern in all directions, up, down, left, and right. That's right, this pattern was a discovery the Astroneer developers probably didn't want you to know. The world is made out of cubes. You see, the terrain was so stubborn that the explosions weren't actually punching holes into the ground anymore. Instead, the explosions were skimming the surface off of any exposed surface. Because the game is made out of large cubes, and in combination with a weird quirk or a bug, the explosions would remove a bit of the surface from every nearby cube, making them all shrink. The cross pattern was a result of the explosions just shrinking all of the nearby cubes that made up the world. Not sure what to do with this information, I continued burrowing down and slipping between the cubes that were showing up. I finally delivered the 6th resource to get the 6th triptych. The only planet we had left to do was the planet we had started on, Silva. With the knowledge behind us, and a delightful number of explosions, the finish line was finally in sight. I blasted through Silva to celebrate a victory lap. All I needed to do was take the extra triptychs from every planet and deliver them to the mysterious satellite in the center to get the credits to roll.
No, let's leave the pallet here. Let's just put everything in our backpack. We can drop the pallet. We can't drop our backpack. That's permanently attached. Oh, hold on. We also have the squeaker. Yes, okay. So first things first, we've got Aatrox hanging out right over here. And then we've got Glacio. It's like this spiky one, but it's not that spiky one. It's this other spiky one. And then the regular spiky one, I think that's Visanya. I have no idea. Maybe Novus. That one might be in Visanya. There's Calidor right over there, then DeSolo, and then finally Silva. And that is indeed all of the triptychs. Unless one of these are mixed up and out of order. Yeah, it is. I mixed up those two. They're all circulation. There we go. Perfect. And that is Astroneer. Oh, we can't honk the horn anymore. She should have honked the horn. That is Astroneer without relying on the terrain tool whatsoever.
And that's basically everything. Thank you so much for listening to this explanation, this challenge, and this journey. If you want to catch me live, you can find some details about my Twitch page in the description. Otherwise, I hope you have a great and wonderful rest of the day. Toodaloo.